Welcome, everyone. My name is Tony Carcamo, President of Civil CAD Learning Solutions and also President of the DFWBM Infrastructure User Group. If you don't know, we actually have webinars 2 or 3 times a month. We also have trivia, and we have guest speakers and industry experts to come in and talk about, design workflows, industry best practices, Autodesk products, collaboration, and BIM workflows. So today we have Christian. So Christian, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to go over today.
Thank you, Tony. Hi, everyone. My name is Christian, and I would like to thank Tony for allowing me to share on his platform. I've been part of his user group for about, I think, a year and a half now. And my favorite part of that group is probably the CAD After Dark. We just talk about AutoCAD and workflows and kind of best industry practices and looking at other plan sets and kind of giving our own inputs. And it's really nice event that everyone kind of collaborates on. I'd also like to thank anyone currently inside of the meeting and other future attendees as well. And to give you a general overview of with what I will be talking about is how to generally use the UX design process to better solve either simple problems to complicated problems. The whole idea is to generate a conceptual view and then constantly narrowing it down. So if you're within the civil engineering industry, you should already kind of see whenever you're presenting a design of something, we're not instantly going to go from like talking to a client and then, okay, you got it. We're going to go straight into final engineering plans. There's going to be a concept. There's going to be iterations as well as different stages in that development in order to achieve that final processing. And even within final, the idea is to refine very small changes, not too drastic, because we already solved all those high level problems in the very beginning. And I'll be sharing my screen right now to show the PowerPoint that I have provided.
Okay.
Is it sharing, Tony? Okay. All right. So this is the UX design process and my interpretation of it, of how it can be used within the civil engineering industry. The About Me section. I began my initial involvement within the civil engineering industry in 2017 when I changed my job in the military to a technical engineer. After the military, I worked at my first consulting firm in 2019 as a civil 3D CAD technician. My project manager and mentor at the time, Robbie Lauer, he really defined my involvement within AutoCAD. He always allowed me to express myself within it. And he always allowed me to be very creative upon looking at new ideas and always looking for better ways that may be against the current way of our efficiency. And I really do appreciate that. And he really outlined the foundation that I was built on for today. And I just want to acknowledge that. During that time.
Can you put it on slideshow so we can see the screen larger?
Yep.
Sorry. There we go. Now we can see it a lot better.
Thank you, guys. So after that became my starting point from really enjoying creating drafting standards internally. This allowed me to then look at Autodesk University to seek more help on understanding from a lot of the industry's professionals, as well as networking with a lot of other people to kind of see how they do things and to understand everyone's perspective on what the best workflow could look like, which is always subjective. So, and I feel that we can use workflows as being subjective and create something truly unique. So I don't necessarily believe in cookie cutter solutions for anything. And the whole idea with this, whenever I was at my first company, was I was a draftsman and I had to make things very, I had to make my efficiency very fast to I had to make my efficiency very fast in order to make quicker turnarounds, but also if any engineers needed to provide any drafting support at all, then I would provide them the tools and the workflows for them to um, have drawings consistent and everything looks as the company standard
Mhm.
should look like. Um, I felt that if the process is convenient and makes the most sense for the engineers to do, therefore they will go through the correct motions without complicated reasoning. So with that being said, is if you provide too much context with something, maybe it's a little bit too complicated of your current workflow of things. Like if you have to have like an entire training just to do something very simple, then maybe it's a little bit too complicated. And this is what that's kind of covering. I went on and went to two other companies, and I learned a tremendous amount from every single person. This is from like other peer engineers, other peer designers, high level, lower level. It doesn't really matter. I feel that everyone provides some sort of good perspective whenever it comes with generating a better way to do something. Because what is easy for me to understand may not be easier for someone else. And at the end of the day, we're not creating workflows for ourselves, we're creating workflows for the company. So, how would you then blanket a level of understanding to where everyone could then produce the same results? Not, I need to have Tony's level of understanding of AutoCAD in order to produce the same content. That's not what we want. We need our standards and our templates and everything to make the most logical sense to where it can be replicated over and over and over again by regardless of whoever is conducting it. One major thing I've seen is that every company is truly unique on their clients and needs for workflow development. I feel that no company should take on cookie cutter approaches for standard development. Um, I feel like all three of the companies that I had the opportunity to work with, every single one's presented different dynamics of needs. You know, um, this company, how they work with other people, how they export out information, how they receive information, it's all a lot differently. So again, understanding who's working there and what is the overall need for the workflow is, I feel, very, very important. But
Sometimes
on,
it's client driven, you know, your client's driving what they want for the
Mhm.
deliverable. So
And this goes on to client deliverables, as well as having an understanding of, and this is going back to the whole cookie cutter thing, is what works in Texas may not work in Colorado, might not work in California, and vice versa. So if we're looking at overall standard implementation, we need to understand the municipality that we're going to be submitting to, kind of what their needs are. And this is why interviewing the people within a company is highly important because the senior managers can tell you the city is going to look for this or that. How would we expedite these action items in order to make our turnarounds a lot faster and so on? And that's the over idea here. Here is the fundamental process stages of UX design, and I interpret it into this format. The first stage would be understanding. This is the most crucial part, in my opinion, of really working on any sort of workflow idea is we need interviewing consumers. Now, who might our consumers be? This will be the engineers, the people that is actively utilizing the software. We need to understand their pain points. We need to understand what are they kind of going through within a typical project workflow? What's catching them up? Why is it taking so long to do something of this sort? And I guess how are you really going to set apart the time after the project to then go about it? We want to understand this stuff before we start a project. So the next time we start a project of any sort, we already are tracking the discrepancies that we're facing consistently throughout. And the issue is if you have different project managers, you have different project management preferences. We don't want that. We want a standard that is overall understanding of everybody. And how this level of understanding could start developing is on surveying or talking to your employees. I would suggest something like providing a high level detail or a high level overview survey and kind of just understanding like I really them just pointing out what they don't like. I feel that everyone can all know what they don't like about a current process. And they can talk about layer management is an issue. This is an issue. Just go down the issues of what they don't like about something and then what they do like about it. And then at the very end, we could then uh, consolidate everyone's needs and see, okay, here are some high level consistencies that we're seeing with everyone inside of the company. And now the next stage after consolidating everyone's user input of high level to a little bit more in detailed level of understanding of pain points and what they do like, what they don't like, what they want to see more of, different sort of aspects of this. Now we're in the analyze phase. This would be analyzing the survey and bringing in everybody and bringing in everyone's inputs that they provided and really just fully understanding what is the biggest pain point of this. What has taken everyone so long to do something yet so simple? And now we want to, after analyzing, we want to kind of provide some clear direction based on solutions from identifying pain points from users. And that means acknowledging that, yes, these are issues, and then maybe we can provide a detailed reasoning why these are issues. Okay, we're looking at, let's say, layer management is a big concern. First, we have to understand why. Why is it such a big concern? And then we're going to go through this rabbit hole of like how really deep is a layer naming going from here. I'm using layer naming because I have a kind of an idea of how we could break it down a little bit more complicated. Next would be after the analyzing stage, we're going to go to the ideate. This would be like brainstorming ideas and drawing board of ideas of very simple conversations. So meaning of we're really just talking to people again, going back to collaboration. We are maybe going on the whiteboard, kind of like, yeah, hey, let's look at this perfect scenario of this, and kind of break it down in a very high level overview of a way to solve everyone's problems that we understood from the understanding phase. And then now we're in the process of conceptualizing solutions. And in this format, it's highly easy to change an idea. We're not putting anything in AutoCAD. We're not putting anything in an Excel spreadsheet format. We're not involving any software. You can do SketchUp or any sort of software to help you, again, provide conceptual drawings to overview of what you're thinking. And we can scrap it easily without you spending days or weeks on presenting something. So we want to be as dynamic and flexible as possible upon the ideation phase. After we have some general topics, then we're going to look at validating them. This would be, okay, we have our great conceptual methodologies in place of how we want to go about things. Now let's actually see if they're going to work. So now we can put a little bit more detail into these. And by this time, you could start out with like 10 out of the wall workflows. And then by this stage, we reduced them down to like maybe 3. So we just scrapped all the other ones. And now we're looking at incorporating more of a detailed way of going about the processes at hand. This would be more of tangible prototypes for visual aid. I incorporated a validation presentation for you guys after this slideshow. I would like to show you all. And then going through project workflows into React processes. I feel like this is very important, is just talking with somebody and be like, okay, if we're going through this typical project workflow cycle, right? And knowing how the city is, knowing how our client is. And again, this is the uniqueness of it. How will this stand up in that? Is these conceptual workflows highly dynamic? Can things always be changed at a blink of an eye, or are these a little bit more fixed? Are we going to spend more time to, all of this collaboration is needed in the validation phase. Validation in all is how well does these workflows stand up? And we're providing more thought into it. And then iterate. Again, it's a very repetitive stage, but I feel like it's very, very important as well. Again, all this is before going into AutoCAD. We're not even touching CAD. You're not even starting a license right now if you're looking at it. So you're saving money this entire time, more or less. And now we're looking at iterating, and we're just going to keep reiterating the understanding, analyze, ideate, and validate phase until we come with a very good understanding of, okay, we went through all these processes, all these meetings, and all these understandings of these different prototypes. Now we're ready to put this into CAD. We went through all these different man hours of producing these different results. Now we know what to do. So now we need to move forward and actually make this happen. We need to put this into CAD to fully understand or to fully see what we want to do. The execution phase, I feel, is set up with two different ones. Execution will be start the product development within your respective software. This could be within Revit, Civil 3D, AutoCAD, or in different extensions of AutoCAD, any software. Usually you see this within a web design development, but I feel like you can apply the same methodologies within developing your own unique workflows. And now, since it's in AutoCAD, we have already solved a lot of the painstakes of, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? All those questions have already been answered. Now we're just implementing. Now we're just executing, putting them into AutoCAD. And then in theory, we would have significantly less time of spending into CAD besides just the execution part. And whenever we have presenting it to anybody, and then we start using a practical exercise with the new workflow development that we have established, then you can be like, okay, then you can start refining it. Here, we don't have to, and again, in theory, we don't have to start making drastic changes and all these different things. We are already past that because we have already solved those problems within the ideate and validate phase. A good example of this, of how you can simply use it within your casual conversation. So I have me and my friend, one of my really good friends, we talk about workflows all the time at my last company. And here's an example conversation that you guys maybe have amongst yourselves, and you're utilizing the UX design process and you have really just no idea. So understanding is, hey, I'm having a real trouble with working with this layer or with this type of setting or with this label style or whatnot. Okay, that's fine. Let's look at what the issue is. So this is like the analyzing. Okay, let's see kind of the issue at hand. What's really going on? Why is this bad? And different things of that sort. Ideate is like, what if we had a label style or a type of setting or a type of way to do this crazy thing, completely off the wall. So now I'm researching, now I'm trying to figure out new different ways to accomplish something that we're currently not doing. The validate is like, okay, upon going through this, I don't think this is going to work because of point A, B, 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 and now we're getting out we're buffing them out. Okay, this workflow in theory sounded great in the ideate phase, but now we validated it and it's just not going to work for our workflow development. So now we're just scrapping it at this time. But then upon doing that, you find other potential workflows around that area. So again, you're kind of within you trying to figure out one solution, you're actually solving a lot of other ones, just by being a little bit more creative. And then now we're just iterating it. Okay, this isn't working. This is what working. This is working. This is not working based on our findings. I think we're good to go. We rolled out 10 other different options, and this option is the best way to do it. So now we're going to execute it. And now we only spent 30 minutes into AutoCAD to just implement what we wanted to do, rather than drafting up all these different scenarios into CAD very first thing, and then not wanting to scrap it due to the amount of time we put into it. I'm sure everyone understands is after you do a design of any sort, how likeliness are you to be like, man, that is a great idea to just scrap everything and start from over? Nobody wants to do that, right? And everyone thinks, oh, you know what, Tony, I seen this corridor that you did. It looks like you did it in 10 minutes. Probably with your tools, it probably did. But let's say for the typical user, it probably, took them like a day, 3 days to generate centerline profiles and to make everything up to code and nice and pretty. And they're just like, scrap it. You know what? We don't want that. We want to just do something complete, just change the whole site, right? And this is what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid somebody being hesitant on making drastic changes for the benefit of other users. So again, user input, highly important. And let's see. Now, I found this one application, and it's called lucid.app. And I would like to welcome everybody into my brain with this is a way that I was thinking of creating something as simple as a layered creation name. Is how really deep in the rabbit hole can you get to when you want to create a layer? Is it as simple as it is? And this is going about it in this way. I feel you're eliminating opinions. You're eliminating what I feel is best. We're looking at it in more of a production format. So how I'm thinking about it is like, okay, layer creation name. We see, here's an example that I placed inside of here. We have different components that make up this strip of information. And if you guys notice, this is just a snippet from the layer manager. We have our name, we have it on, freeze, lock, plot or no plot, color, line type, line weight, transparency, new viewport freeze, and our description box. Now we're pretty much solving this entire strip of, I feel, problems and understanding it a little bit better of how we want to standardize on standardizing a layer name, a layer creation name. Is upon here, it's like, okay, well, first we need to understand what plot style that we're going to be running with, CTB or STB. One of these two, they're very unique to whatever you want to do. And CTB is highly dependent on your color table, while STB is more dependent on the plot style line weight itself. And this here is a completely different workflow development. This isn't even incorporated in here. You would be doing something similar to this, but deciding on which plot style that you would like to go with. This is just outlining pros and cons, usability, practicality of everything, and whatever you decide here will then influence your color, your thickness, as well as your transparency. So everything maps out to each other. Next would be layer name breakdown, is looking at it as instead of starting from a layer name such as here are just some other, here's like the end goal. Let's look at it from here. Think of like, okay, what do we want the layer name to tell us? How in detail do we want it to be? We should look at the utility of it then. we need it. So here I outlined it as some segments here that I find is important. Is it needs to be the readability of it. I don't want it jacked up and all looking crazy and whatnot. I want it to be easily readable. I want it to be easily identifiable, meaning if I look at it, I know what it is. There's certain it makes sense to me. It makes sense to everyone else. If I don't understand this project, I should be able to go into here and know exactly what this line is. And I don't want a general one. I don't want like C dash storm. It's like C dash storm what? You know what I mean? Like if you're just looking at a base file and someone sends you this, it's like, well, what is this? You know, I want a little bit more information if I have no context. Less noisy. I feel like everything is capital letters, and it just sometimes looking at a lowercase letter sometimes is kind of calming. I feel like layer names to me kind of just scream at me. And whenever you're cycling through hundreds of layers within your layer manager, I mean, realistically speaking, how much do you just look at it and then you just zone out? Because there is nothing that's like popping out at you. You have no identifiers, more or less. Aesthetically pleasing, I don't want the layer name to be, ugly looking per se, which is again subjective. Helps with organizing layer name list with the name. So it's how will this look like in your layer manager? How with hundreds of layers or 50 layers or however many layers that you have within the space file, how would this layer, how will layers stand out? How would I be able to utilize the naming of a layer without the use of filters? And this is what it is here. How do I want to visually see it in AutoCAD? This would be more of like the color, line type, kind of scenario here. Do I want to see the storm as dashed and magenta? Do I want to see it as orange? And this line, like how do I visually want to see it? Next is how do I want to visually see it in PDF? These are completely different. It's just PDF is just black and white. And then now we're just looking at different line weights and different things of that sort. So maybe I want it, let's just say something I want it transparent, more or less. But I don't want to visually see it in AutoCAD as something dulled out. I only want to see it dulled out in PDF. This is kind of the question you would be asking initially. So now here are some examples. Is let's say I want my layer name to be, and this is like a layer name breakdown, would be overall, I want to set up different type of identifiers without the segment. This would be overall description, category of the layer, the type of layer, description of the layer, detailed description. And this would just be like provided just a standard way to standardize how to create a layer name. So next would be, I want my overall description of this proposed. This could be proposed, existing, whatever you feel like is necessary. This is truly unique to whatever you want it to be. So I'm choosing propose. This is a proposed utility storm drain. This is a main line, and it's RCP. It's not HDPE. It's not. There's not a PVC. It's not CMP. It's RCP. So I have all this information within here of just this layer name. And now I'm looking at how would I be able to illustrate this layer name into something readable. So again, going back to here, readable, easily identifiable, less noisy, aesthetically pleasing, all these things here would be relevant to deciding this. Here is an idea, okay, PR utilities, this looks too long for me. This is still looking too long. I don't like how the Storm D looks. I like PR. I don't know. I don't think I need a PR. So we're just analyzing this and we're just going into the motions of just picking it out. I don't like this. But now we're continuously refining to where it comes to here. And again, all subjective way of doing it. I prefer this one because it's something very easy, and within your layer manager, you'll see all your proposed elements is P, And then you're going to have util, which is separating out all of your utility elements within a category on your layer manager. So if you have 8 different XREFs being shown, all of your utility, and you go to the navigate all of your utilities layers will be consolidated just by the name itself, which I feel is very important. And then now we're looking at storm drain. That's what that stands for. So all of my storm drain components will be then organized in the layer manager solely based on the name. And now main will start to differ. And then we have RCP, and then we would have HDPE, we would have PVC, anything else, or CMP, anything else. So again, everything is just consolidated, everything has a home. Going into here would be another way to think about it. Let's say you want something a little bit less specific, a little bit more broad. Discipline, type of category, description. So we're starting from here without overcomplicating this just yet. And then, okay, my discipline, I'm civil. Type of category, I would say this would be a storm drain. And then description, main. So you kind of decide how long you want it, solely based on here first. And then once you get to this part, then we're kind of refining it. And then, yeah, so these again are just examples. No one has to use them, but this is kind of how I like to run about things. And then after all this, I'm going to look at my line type. Is maybe I'm going to look at a universal identifier. So if I'm looking at a water line, am I going to do something fancy and put like a line type of TER for, turf or water? Probably not. I've never seen that before. Nobody will understand it. So I'm going to go with the universal identifier of ST instead, or dashed with a global width of whatever I need. So this is kind of how this is quickly identified. Now, after all this is created, I'm like, okay, I think I'm in a good spot. Now I'm going to ask these type of questions first. Will I be able to identify the object without context? If I was an intern, if I was a senior engineer, if I was just a random person, more or less, how easy is this layer to understand? How I read it is P for proposed, utility, storm drain, main, RCP, reinforced concrete pipe. So this makes sense to me, but maybe to someone else it doesn't make sense. So without user input, it's just biased. So again, that's why you need these detailed collaborations before this process. Next would be how this.
Jump in. One of the reasons I don't use the National CAD standard, they use 4 letters for everything. And if you got new employees, they don't understand some of these initials and stuff. So they have to look up descriptions, they got to look up handout. I try to dumb it down, spell out some of these things. A good example, I spell out storm, but they leave out O, National CAD standard. Yeah. So things like that kind of annoy me. And like, look, I'm trying to make it very simple for somebody getting into CAD for the first time. They won't know what some of these initials stand for. You make good points. How do you make it simplify it, make it easy for everybody?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree. It's what will that one letter removing it accomplish? Like, will it crash my CAD? Will it add in a gigabyte of information to my file? Who knows? And then next would be how this overall look on the layer manager. The reason why I have and I learned this from my mentor, Robbie Lauer. He has this same ideology as well, is whenever you have this here, whenever you're looking at capital letters all the time, what stands out to you? Lowercase and capital differentiation of each other. So whenever I'm navigating through a layer list, I have identifiers. I have this U for utility, right? As my identifier. S. So if I'm looking at, if I have water, I have all these different things, S stands out to me a little bit more. Main stands out a little bit more, and so on. So this is why I have these. I feel like it's quicker for me to go through the layer manager a bit more. Keeps things a lot more organized for me, rather than everything being like, just, I mean, you guys are pretty familiar with it, like everything just being like capital letters, everything. It just blends in together. We want to differentiate as best as we can without overcomplicating it with filters. Next would be if you have extras in your drawing with these layers, how easy would it be to locate? I've seen drawings with like people create master templates and they have every single template has layers into it. So now whenever you extract in 6 drawings, you have like hundreds of layers that are coming, you know what I mean? That are like, you're like, if you have a utility base and then you have site work and you have site layers in there, you have mapping layers in there, you have irrelevant layers in there, but they still populate in your layer manager. So it's like, how will you be able to locate a specific layer to turn it off, to freeze it, change the color, whatever you want to do with it? How easy will it be to locate? And does anybody have any questions for this segment at all?
No, I mean, you make good points about layers. Every company's, does a little bit of something different. As a consultant myself, I do templates and I would say everybody's is slightly different. Um, I'm more on the private sector, not on the public sector, so I can't speak for the public sector, but the private sector kind of does their own thing. They'll tweak it, they'll spell out words. Sometimes they'll do initials. But one thing I always recommend is don't go crazy with the layers. Yes, you can do filters and do layer states and stuff, but don't go crazy and have a template that has 1,000 layers in it.
Yeah.
I saw a master template. It's not somebody built, but a government agency's provided 7,000 layers, 7,000 layers in a master template. Of course, this master template was really just like, hey, here you go. You can use this government agency template, but it's for every discipline. You can think of, airports, fire, architectural, landscaping. I think there was like 12 different industries and then this master template. So, and of course, you don't use those layers, but that's a lot, and they were very detailed and breaking it down to like almost every structure, every little object had its own layer, which sometimes I
Mhm.
feel like that's unnecessary to have
Mhm.
every single object have a layer, especially on the civil side. I can't speak
Yeah,
for the architectural side, because if you do that, then you're just going to have a lot of layers. Um,
absolutely.
that's just my opinion on that. I try to make things very, very simple for users, for even the very, very beginners that get into drawing. So
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Tony, for your feedback. And again, this is all subjective, and that's the beauty of it is there's no linear way of doing this at all. It is based on, I guess, the UX designer of how he wants to orchestrate all of this. And all of this again is subjective, and that's what I love about it. It produces collaboration, it produces people to have more conversations, and then really stopping people from talking about everything and complaining about everything, and we're actually putting into the motion of executing. We're getting stuff done. We're putting it into a workflow to where we're able to accomplish very big problems and narrow them down towards more manageable to battle on. My next slide is now things you might notice within your own company is, and I feel like this is very, very typical, is there's biased processes from management. You're receiving workflows and ideas from management level that is based on their familiarity or preference or personal preference. So imagine if you have somebody who learned AutoCAD Civil 3D in 2010, let's say, and they were an active user in that. And then they went to the management side of things and they stopped working in AutoCAD for, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years, and they haven't have a lot of design experience or not. They don't have any present design experience of utilizing new features and new things. So in theory, their workflows would be outdated a significant amount because they're just looking for, when they go into a drawing, it needs to be familiar with them. They need to understand what's going on. It doesn't really matter about everyone else as long as they like it. That's kind of how
That
it
does
will.
happen often. I kind of run into that situation when I'm kind of providing consulting with companies, and I get feedback from the EITs and the designers and CAD managers, but then I'll get feedback from the upper management. I try to get feedback from both sides, and I kind of get an idea, who's the ones kind of setting those company standards.
And
If you have any questions, I kind of went through that process with one company where I actually had to we're building a new template, but I actually had to sit down with every department, every lead department manager, then maybe one or two people in each department that were doing the design. And we wrote a CAD manual. Of course, it ended up being like 100 pages because we had to break down, completely redo even the folder structure. What was going in each folder structure, every subset folder and subset folder, what belonged in those folders, what should be. So I'm writing like a little 2 or 3 sentence paragraph of what's going in each folder, what should be in each folder, how the files should be named so it makes sense to everybody else. And it took
Mhm,
several months to sit there and sit down with every department and go talk about their folders, because every department had their own personal folders, environmental folder and hydraulic folder and traffic department folders and survey folders. And, each one had their own, system, but we try to unify those systems together and say, hey, let's make them all kind of look the same, unified, how you name the files, how you name your projects, stuff like that. So it takes a process. It's kind of like a process, like exactly what you had. You got to go sit down and figure out what the end results are, but sit down with each team and also the designers, not just the project managers.
mhm.
So
Absolutely. Another one is that you guys, I'm sure, have seen is usually people start in AutoCAD first, and then that's kind of like whenever they're presenting ideas, they're more of like not really presenting, like, hey, here's an idea. I'm up for your suggestion. I'm just letting you know, since it took me 100 hours to accomplish this in AutoCAD, we're going to do it because I don't have the time to fix it, or you know what I mean? It's always about time, time, time. So this is a big thing that I see everywhere that I have been to, and it's just never a happy ending. So um, I think the third major flaw is people launch without user feedback. You have one person to create all these things, but then let's say they're just doing design. They're not even like in the sheets. They're not doing anything workflow related. They're just grading the entire time. They're just doing roadway design. They're just doing project management level things, or they're doing utility design. Doesn't matter what they're doing. They're just typically, let's just say, within one file. That's all they're worrying about. They're not doing sheet set management of utilizing different things. So I feel like an overall user feedback is completely necessary. And if you follow the UX design process upon doing this, you're not going to miss anybody. Like it's going to, in theory, you should have a full understanding. Everything would be relative and everything would be understanding by everybody. Therefore, there's not a preference of delivery. And whenever somebody gets inside of it, they're more prone to following standards because it makes sense to them and they had somewhat of an input inside of it. Typically, somebody would stray away a little bit if they feel like they had no say so, or they're just doing it because somebody told them to do it and that's the way to do it. You don't need context, there's no understanding. We just always done it this way. Always the wrong answer. So you're going to produce more consistent results with people. And then if you ask Joe Schmo over here, hey, how do you do something? This person will then tell you the exact same way to do it as this other individual. So the overall ending is producing consistency and a level of understanding that everyone can follow. And that is my presentation. I do appreciate everyone following me on here and
yeah.
listening to me rant about it. So I had a pretty good time.
Yeah, thanks for presenting for the group. Good stuff. Some people don't know it. You got to have a system, put together when you're doing any kind of training, any templates, layer managements, having some kind of system put in place and a process, um, and getting input. So that's really good. So Definitely, if I have any questions or additional questions, you can email Christian, or you can, hit him up on our MeWe platform. You can send him private messages, or you can post it on our group chat. Um, we're on there every day. We're on there right now. So if you have any additional questions, we did record the video, so I'll upload it to our YouTube channel. Yeah, buying in, from stakeholders is essential. That's also important. So, but yeah, definitely. Okay, guys, appreciate it. I think we have another webinar. I think I may have one more lined up end of the month, and then we have trivia later this week, software trivia. That's AutoCAD and Civil 3D. I'm sorry, AutoCAD and Revit trivia. And then next month we have another guest speaker. Was it Next Space and Civil? Was it Cyber City 3D? We're going to come in. And then I'll probably have Autodesk come in again, do another presentation. This one will probably be over recap. Yeah, we got a few more coming in. So definitely appreciate everybody coming in and joining us for our webinar and supporting our members. And feel free to comment on our platform. So, all right. Thanks, Christian.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Later.